Women Today, brought to you by citywing.com for your next flight away.
Hello and welcome to the Women Today podcast. We've had some interesting discussions this week about things like whether women need to be mothers in order to be good leaders and whether or not Lewis Hamilton should have been allowed in the royal box at Wimbledon wearing that outfit. But let's start with an online video by local freerunner Will Sutton that's gone viral.
No matter where I am in the world, whenever I tell people I'm from the Isle of Man, they only know it for one thing. But I see it in a different way.
Well, freerunning, it's pretty much using your body to do all sorts of flips, tricks, movement in and around your environment, wherever you are. It can be like flat grounds or along walls, railings, wherever you are, really.
And how did you know that you had this skill? I mean, did you one day say to your mum, do you know what, I'm just going to go outside and play and start jumping off walls and running over chimneys? How did it come about?
It was me and my best mate, Owen. He's from the Isle of Man too. But I remember we watched a documentary on Channel 4 about 10 years ago. It's called Jump Britain. And we were just like blown away by it. We just seen all these guys jumping around and we were like, wow. So literally, we went to school, researched it a little bit, and then just copied everything.
Did you have any accidents at all?
Yeah, like you have accidents on the way, but that kind of comes with it. It's just, knocks here and there.
What age were you when you first started doing your free running?
I was 13 when I first started.
So what's your favourite skill that you do whilst you're free running?
I love doing sort of like from high to low or low to high movements, sort of like as fast as I can and as smooth as I can. That's sort of my style of movement, I guess.
And have you always been very sporty?
Yeah. We always tried like BMXing, skateboard and all that sort of stuff, but nothing really clicked as much as free running.
Are you a bit of an adrenaline junkie?
Yeah, I think so. I do love doing this sort of stuff.
You've just made a short film called Home Free, which has gone crazy on social media. I mean, my newsfeed on Facebook is full of it from just people sharing and also on Twitter, and I'm so happy for you. But for anyone that hasn't actually seen this short film, can you just tell me a bit about what it's about?
It's sort of like a journey of a freerunner going through the island, all these beautiful places, trying to sort of like showcase the island of what it actually is and showcase all like the sort of scenery, because I don't think there's actually many videos out there that sort of showcase the island in a way we sort of wanted to.
Especially without a motorbike in the background.
Yeah, definitely, because that's what everyone sees the Isle of Man as, is like the TT and all this sort of stuff.
You went to so many different locations while you were filming. Which was your favourite?
I know one of my favourites was the handstand on Milner's Tower.
Yes.
Because we sort of got there, the weather just brightened up, the sun came out, and we were just like, yes, this is the shot. And obviously them guys were a bit like, they didn't want me to do it, but like, I'm so confident with handstands on edges. So I was like, yeah, I need to do this.
Well, I was terrified when I saw it, and I had goosebumps just watching. How long were you holding the handstand
really?
for, do you think?
I had to do it like 6 or 7 times, but each one was roughly around like 5 to 12 seconds.
You're just lucky it wasn't windy.
Yeah, it was a little windy, but like you can kind of catch it. You just sort of like use your fingers to hold you in.
So one of my favourite parts of it was the handstand rocks when you're just literally on your arms and you didn't quite get it the first time. So you sat there and then you go and do it again perfectly. And I love the fact that actually you show that you don't always get it 100% right. It was brilliant.
Yeah, that is the case. But it's just repetition over and over again. You'll drill the move and that's when you pick it up.
And how do you feel about this newfound celebrity now?
I don't have a clue. I'm just quite blown away with the response. I just didn't expect people to like it this much.
And so what's next then?
I just want to keep making more videos, literally keep releasing all these different sort of crazy things. I don't know, I'm just really onto making videos that haven't been seen before.
I'd just like to ask the final question. When you next come over to the Isle of Man, could you possibly come up to Manx Radio and maybe the Women Today team, we could all go outside and have a try at some of these free running skills that you do?
Sounds good to me.
I think there may be a few bruises or broken legs, though. That's the only problem.
I don't know. You'll be fine, I'll teach you the way.
Are you concerned about your children mimicking your bad habits? Well, the charity is warning that British parents are unaware of the risk of children copying their drinking habits while on holiday. Now, this survey has been carried out by DrinkAware, and it's found that 44% of mums and dads say they've seen their kids mimic their behaviour, such as saying things like cheers or pretending to sip alcohol. But more than half admitted it did not prompt them to change. Now, Fiona Seymour is from the charity which carried out the research.
If you take a big sip of your wine and you give a big sigh and say, "Oh, I needed that, I felt really stressed," you may just inadvertently be giving your child the message that alcohol can be used as a way of relieving stress.
So then, is this something that we're all guilty of, and how concerned are we about our children mimicking our bad habits, especially in relation to drinking, Joe? I'm going to be honest here, actually. I know all my children, when they've been very little, we've always done the thing saying, "Oh, cheers," when they're having a drink. I mean, I would never necessarily have associated that with alcohol, but this has really made me think.
Yeah, the lady we just heard from said, obviously, has had a stressful day, and relating it to a glass of wine. And I know so many people that do that said, you know what, I've had a really bad day, and they go for the wine bottle. And yes, it is in front of the children. I'm not a big drinker. I do go out and have the odd night out with the girls, but, you know, at home I don't tend to drink at home at all. And my kids very often see me having a no alcohol beer because I enjoy that. And, you know, in fact, I know that my 14-year-old daughter is quite happy that I don't drink, and she's got no interest in it at the moment whatsoever, whereas a lot of her friends are really quite keen to drink. And I just wonder whether that is because she doesn't see me often drink and it's not something that she's that used to.
I don't know. Do you know, this has really worried me, actually, because my boys are really massively into cycling. They watch Tour de France, and they watch all sort of cycling race meetings, and very often at the end they will see people standing on the podium and shaking the champagne around, and they pretend to do that. And I think, oh no, is that wrong?
I don't know. I should be a bit of a cynic about this, obviously, but I don't think there's anything wrong with having a drink in front of your children. I think it's a perfectly normal part, done responsibly, of our kind of society. So I don't think we should be hiding it away. I think there's much more danger if we suddenly make having a glass of wine at the end of the day something secretive and something that we should be ashamed of and not tell anyone about.
I totally agree, because what you're basically saying is everything in moderation, which is the rule of life. I do think it's right. I mean, I don't choose to hide it whatsoever. It's just that I don't really drink from home, so it's just something she's used to seeing. But I think there is a lot of, you know, mums that tend to have a bottle of wine in the evening, and, you know, a glass of wine, absolutely, I agree with it. The French do it, and apparently it's very good for you to have a glass of red wine every day. But a bottle, again, it's not really in moderation, is it?
I think, yeah, the key line to pull that face, Kate. I think the key point here is being responsible, isn't it? And, you know, just having a healthy attitude towards drinking generally.
And also having a healthy attitude to how you talk about it with your children. Surely it's better that, you know, if they go out when they are 16, 17, and like a lot of teenagers, and I'm sure like many of us, do get into a situation where they have had perhaps a little bit too much to drink, that they are able to phone you up and say, look, mum or dad or whoever it is looking after them, that I've had, you know, a glass of wine too many, or whatever it is. Probably not wine, was it, when you're 17? But be able to phone you and ask for help and tell you where they are, rather than, as I say, kind of keeping it secretly hidden away.
Lynn, what were your drinking habits like in your early teenage years? No?
Not something you want to discuss anyway.
You should have just said absolutely fine there.
Yeah. Wonderful.
I mean, Wendy, you say obviously you can't drink now. Did you drink at all when you were sort of in your early teenage years?
No, I was a really good girl and didn't have a drink until my 18th birthday.
Oh. Do we believe that?
Honestly. But then I started to notice a pattern with headaches, which then became seizures. So no.
You know, you say that with headaches as well, and that brings me on to a point we were talking about drinking, and it's the hangover the next day. I think there's nothing worse than for kids to actually see their parents totally hungover. And that's something that I'm very aware of as well. I know that I really suffer, and I don't like my children to see it at all, because, yeah, I just... well, anyway, I'm going to bring Beth in at this point.
Yeah, Beth, have you ever perhaps been a little worse for wear on a Sunday morning and maybe just given your children iPads and sat them in front of the television? I don't know.
All I'm going to say is you were there as well. There's been a really interesting debate over the past few days about whether or not a woman needs to be be a mother in order to be a good leader. Now, it centres on two of the Labour Party's main women, Yvette Cooper and Liz Kendall, who are both vying for the leadership of that party. In a blog on the Huffington Post called Why as a Parent I'm Backing Yvette Cooper as Labour's next leader, Helen Goodman MP has said,
"As a working mum, she understands the pressures on modern family life. We need a leader who knows what challenges ordinary people face day to day and who is committed to helping them."
But this opinion has caused a social media storm. It's still being debated under the Twitter hashtag ParentGate. John Woodcock, who is a prominent supporter of Miss Kendall, demanded to know if Mrs Cooper had anything to do with the piece and said he was looking forward to the day someone tells a man they're voting for him because he has a kid and the other guy doesn't. He says it will be equally sad then too. Other people have asked, really, is this what it's come to? And a spokesperson for Yvette Cooper, who has got 3 children, has said this.
"I don't think talking about family finances, childcare, the sandwich generation, youth mental health, child protection, and online and women and children as victims of crime is a low blow. We don't choose the headlines. The piece is all about the issues Yvette has based her campaign and her career around. There is no reference to any other candidate."
So what do you think? Isn't it a fair point that a woman who's juggled the demands of children around her work will have a better understanding of what it's like for many women who are juggling family and the workplace? Or while you need a lot of things to be a great politician, having children isn't necessarily one of them? What do you reckon, Jo?
Bit divided on it, to be fair. I do feel that a lady that doesn't have children, maybe because she simply doesn't want them, or also because she can't have them. So I think it's unfair to obviously judge her on that alone. Would I vote for somebody if they were a mother compared to if they weren't a mother? I don't know. I actually don't know. I think I can relate obviously to a person that's had children, and she is a mother because obviously I am one, and I may have felt differently when I didn't have children. So not making any sense, am I? I'm very, very divided on this one. I don't really know. I think it does take... I think when you become a mother, you become a very different person, but it depends on what she's fighting for, what obviously she wants to rule. If she wants to bring things in about being a working parent, for instance, then of course being a mother, she's going to have an understanding of it more so.
I think the point that was made about the fact that we don't necessarily think of men and then think, oh, are they a father, therefore I'll vote for him, is quite a good one. Howard, what do you think?
Yeah, I think that's valid enough, isn't it? I know there's a difference in role between mother and father, but it should be a shared responsibility. And obviously, the vast majority of men are be going out, and yes, people don't say, oh, he's a dad, he's going to be better for that. Clearly, I think what Jo was saying, yes, I would tend to agree. If there are issues about working mothers and you actually are a working mother, surely it would stand to reason you would appreciate those problems more than a woman who'd never experienced those pressures. Having said that, should that enter into the judgment when it comes to the leadership of the Labour Party, or should it just be the person who's going to be the best leader regardless?
Do you think people maybe voted for David Cameron because he does have children? I don't think they would have judged him on that, as you say.
I wouldn't have thought so, no. I wouldn't have thought so. Although I think from maybe a man's point of view, from Mr Cameron's point of view, I think he had the son who died, didn't he, a few years ago. That was obviously in the media. It must have been a shocking time for them, very upset. It I'm sure perhaps humanised him. I think politicians are sometimes seen as they're just politicians. You can throw whatever you want at them, in particular if you're at the upper echelons in national politics. And I think that perhaps humanised him and thought, oh gosh, he is a father. He's just a dad like millions of other dads.
But then also maybe people might be looking at it that if she is a mother, is she going to be able to put in the amount of hours? Is she going to be able to do the job effectively because she's got so many other things going on in her life?
That's a fair question. And she does have a child, and obviously she needs to be with that child for at least a proportion of the time, surely.
Well, she has 3 children, but I guess, people move on. And as you said earlier, Nicola, maybe you have very different demands when you have very young children. Those children might be slightly more grown up now. I don't know. But the notion of family and politics, and this is something you said when we were discussing this just before we came on air, it's not new. People have always expected to see that the politicians being photographed with their family because that's what sells them, really.
Yeah, they trot out their wives and their daughters and show what good family men they are. So I suppose there's currency in
when, you know, I'm a working mother. I suppose it's like that adage, if you want something done, ask a busy woman. I guess it's like a step on from that, isn't it? You know, she's showing that she's this very capable working mother. She can run a family and she has an idea what it's like for other working mothers. I suppose the thing I'm uneasy with is the idea that you need to have experience of something in order to have empathy for other people. I mean, by virtue of empathy, you shouldn't need experience to put yourself in that person's shoes, and a good politician should be able to know how it might feel for all of the constituents. I mean, you might know what it's like to be a busy working mother, but do you know what it's like to be a single mother on benefits? Do you know what it's like to be the mother of a very disabled child and not to be able to work because of that? So I suppose just because you're a mother or a working mother doesn't mean you know what it's like for all mothers.
When you think about representation, I suppose if you use the Isle of Man as an example, we've only got 2 women in the House of Keys, and so that's certainly not... It doesn't reflect Manx society particularly, so you do hope that the person who is reflecting your area has got some empathy, whether or not they've been in your situation.
We asked this on Facebook, and we came back with a comment just saying, you know, quite simply, it's such a narrow-minded philosophy.
We've had a text in from somebody saying with an MP husband she has no idea of the problems of a normal working mother.
And I just wonder whether we have, as a society, or not the Isle of Man, but just generally painted ourselves into a corner whereby obviously a woman has every right to have a career and a profession and go out to work the same as a man, and I would totally defend that. But we now seem to have got to the stage where there might be some women who don't want to do that and will be quite happy just to be a homemaker and bring up children if that was her choice, but feels she's unable to, because now it seems an awful lot of people say we couldn't live the style we're wanting to live a lifestyle without 2 incomes coming in.
And I think we're going back to the point of we're judging. You know, we're again judging people on whether they're a mother or whether they're not, whereas actually we should be judging them on just being a person and doing their job. So maybe we should just stop being so judgmental.
And Margaret Thatcher was a mother.
You probably gathered by now I'm a huge fan of motorsport. Mm-hmm.
Oh, no, really?
Mm-hmm.
No.
Just ever so slightly,
Gosh.
maybe. Did I tell you I might be going to the MotoGP soon, Beth?
Yeah,
anyway,
you mentioned it.
Moving on. What came in the news today, I was really interested about because it was to do with Lewis Hamilton, of which I'm a huge fan. I just think he's an incredible legend. But there we go, that's my own point of view. And I know that it's not one that maybe Howard shares with me.
No,
the reason why he was in the news today was because Gary Lineker hit out at Wimbledon for not allowing Lewis Hamilton into the royal box because he wasn't wearing the correct dress code.
Did you see what he was wearing?
Hang on. Okay. Are you interrupting me now?
Yeah, I am.
Okay, I can feel a debate coming on about this one. He wasn't wearing a jacket and tie, of course, of which the gorgeous David Beckham was. But he was wearing a attractive floral shirt, chinos, terrible shoes, and a straw hat. I mean, the straw hat goes at tennis, surely. But you know what? I want to discuss this because I want to know from you, what do you think about this? Do you think that he should have been wearing a jacket and tie to be allowed into the royal box? There is a photo of him standing inside the restaurant area watching over centre court. So he's obviously got through certain barriers before he got to the royal box, but he wasn't allowed entry into the royal box. Of course, he missed the match between Federer and Djokovic, which I think is quite sad because, you know what, he's brought British motorsport up so well. I mean, he's doing such a great job. Do you think he should have been allowed in?
Doesn't say much about his fashion sense, though, does it? I mean, you can have
he
all
can
the
wear what he likes.
Really? Did you see
Still
it?
looks good. Yeah,
really?
it looks great.
Yeah,
Really?
it wasn't really that much, was it? It was sort of Wurzel Gummidge lookalike in essence, wasn't it? I mean, you say attractive floral shirt. I'd go more for Oxfam reject. The trousers, fine. Shoes, who cares? The hat. I mean, the end
Say
of the day,
it as it is, Howard.
The hat is. I think we were saying before me, looking at the picture, this whole thing. I'm a great fan of Panama and straw hats, and think worn well, they are great. But there is a certain thing, they should be worn properly, and my dad always had it as well, and that men of a certain age, so if you get very old, or even my age or something, and not fantastically trendy, if you tried to wear the hat as Lewis was, with the brim turned up all the way around, you would look like a scarecrow, or just frankly stupid. You should
He
have
looks
the
cool.
brim turned down at the front. Well, I wouldn't go that far. I think you might be a teeny weeny bit biased there.
Slightly.
I could be wrong.
Okay, so Andy Roddick has hit out because he believes that Hamilton should have stuck to the invite rules. So thinking about this, do we think that when there is a dress code, no matter who you are, what you've done, you should stick to them no matter what?
We had this debate a little while ago, didn't we, when we were talking about Cannes and women having to wear high heels and being turned away from certain premieres because they weren't. And so why should it be any different for men? I mean, if he's read the invitation, then he should know what he has to wear.
Exactly. And I think the thing is, yes, I've never been invited to the Royal Box, surprise, surprise. I have been to Wimbledon several times. I did have one year, we were very lucky, well, a couple of years, in fact, several years ago, we had debenture lounge badges. We weren't debenture holders, but a very kind friend had given us some. And yes, if you go into the grounds, you're saying dress like Lewis or dress like I was, you can get into the grounds and past the stewards, no problem, as long as you're dressed, and obviously not indecently dressed, you can have on. And you see going around the grounds, you see everything from people immaculately turned out with high heels or full suit, whatever the case may be, all the way through to sneakers and shorts and t-shirts, as we might be. If you went into the bencher holders lounge, it was a different kettle of fish. You would not get in there, regardless of whether you had your badge on, unless you had a jacket and tie on, and that would have been quite obvious to Lewis, regardless of whether he's a superstar in sport or not, that they were the regulations. And so I'm afraid, what's the point of having regulations if you're just going to waive them because someone's famous?
Well, I have to say I'm with Gary Lineker because he says the decision was England at its pompous worst. And I'm sorry, I do believe that
Don't bother with
it
rules,
should be
then.
smart dress code. Smart dress code is smart dress, and I agree with that. But I think a jacket and tie in what was the heat? It was over 30 degrees of heat, within, luckily for them, on Centre Court at Wimbledon. And for guys to sit there in jackets and ties, I think it's now looking a little bit too pompous. Sorry.
David Beckham seemed to manage. He looked perfectly cool to me.
Oh, you've got her there.
It's a really difficult one, that one, because I can't
she's
say
struggling.
a word against David Beckham. However, I think a smart dress code should be just a smart dress code. I don't think we need to implement jacket and tie. It's like the bars and restaurants that you go to around the world and they insist that you wear a jacket and tie. And I think for businessmen that have to wear a jacket and tie all week long, in actual fact, they can wear smart dress, which is a shirt and chinos or shirt and slacks, whatever it is, without needing to wear the tie and the jacket. What do you think, Miles?
Right, I think it comes down to respect. If you've been invited to join the Royal Box and they've asked you to wear a particular dress code, then out of respect, you would do as you were told.
Insofar as Miles has joined us today wearing a shirt, tie and suit jacket.
I have. Just out of respect to yourselves, I've dressed appropriately to come and women today.
But that's the interesting thing, isn't it? I was thinking that before, thinking, obviously you look very smart and you're dressed as you'd imagine an advocate would be. Presumably you could do your job just as effectively in shorts and
with a Panama hat as
and
well.
a full shirt and a Panama hat, but it wouldn't be the dress that your clients would expect. And presumably equally, an employee came in wearing jeans and sneakers and said, I'm ready for work, they'd be sent home and told to dress appropriately.
Actually, on that, we actually have in our employment contracts a dress code. So we do have a dress code. Yeah.
It is actually been researched that if you do wear smart clothes to work, that you tend to work better than if you are perhaps working, Beth's laughing at me because I'm in my yoga stuff.
I said nothing. Unfortunately, you could just read my face.
Yes, as always. But they do say that if if you're working from home, that you should make sure that you make an effort to sit at the desk and actually work at the computer or whatever you're doing, because you work more effectively.
Yeah, I think so. I think it gets you into work mode. You're wearing working clothes. Whatever job you do, the working clothes can change. But you're in your working outfit and you've come to do work.
Essentially, I think what we've discovered this afternoon, Joe, is you're wrong, and we're all right. If anybody would like to back Joe up at all, do feel free.
You only have to mention the word high school and I'm virgin breakdown at the moment. I'm just being hit with both barrels, I think. Ryan's an August baby, so he's one of the youngest in the class. So one, I don't feel that he's as mature as the rest of the class. And second, he's my only child. So I've got only child syndrome. He's always going to be my baby.
And how does he feel about it?
He is so ready. He's so ready to move. The high school that he's going to, I can only speak for Ballycameen because this is the school that he's going to. Miss Burnett and the team, they've been fantastic with the transition. It's not like when I went to high school, you leave school and 6 weeks later get put in this massive school, new people, new faces. Since January last year, they've started the transition with the children, which has been great. Ballacomine staff coming into the primary schools and doing lessons. They've been up there on transition days. They've had their lunch up there. So he's more than excited now. He's so ready.
Well, on today's programme, as you may have guessed, we're talking about that big move from primary to secondary school. What does the Department of Education over here do to make that transition as smooth as possible? And how can parents help bridge that gap? We're joined live today by 2 head teachers and the Department of Education's School Improvement Advisor. So if you've got any questions or comments, you can get in touch throughout the programme. You can email womentoday@manxradio.com. You can text 166 177. Go to the Women's Day Facebook page or follow us at MR Women's Day on Twitter, where there are some very fetching photographs of some young ladies at their first day of secondary school.
Delightful young ladies, I think.
Looking very youthful.
Yes, well, speak for yourself. It is a huge step, though, isn't it? Moving from that secure, familiar environment of primary school to the big unknown of secondary school. I mean, that's just for the parents, really. But the good news is, as we just heard on the 2 o'clock news just before this show, the Isle of Man is apparently leading the way when it comes to this important transition. We're going to be hearing how and why throughout the programme, but since it is a few years since Joe and I made the move, and maybe not so many since Kate did, I thought maybe to start off with it might be interesting to reflect on our own experience. And Joe, what was it like for you?
Oh, it's so different for me, I suppose, because than you guys. I was at Onken School and absolutely loved the whole experience of it. And when I was 10, I had to leave all my friends behind and I went to boarding school in England. And I absolutely loved it. It was great and it was the best thing for me, for sure. But I do remember that first day and my parents, oh my goodness me, it actually brings tears to my eyes now thinking about it. But I can actually remember my parents leaving me and driving away, and I wasn't then going to see them for another 6 weeks. And it was very, very difficult because I didn't know anybody, of course, that I was going to school with. Whereas the luxury of being here is it's such a close-knit community that you then all move up together. And even if you've not been at school together, you then, of course, know other people perhaps from around the island too. A very different experience, I suppose.
I suppose it was actually slightly different for me because I'd moved primary schools a couple of times, so I was kind of used to being the new girl in a school. But it is incredibly daunting, I think, when you stand in that big school and look down the corridors and just think, how on earth am I ever going to remember where I'm supposed to go, who I'm supposed to be with? Because it's that massive shift in how you're actually taught and moving classes for different lessons and things like that. It is just so different.
I remember getting my planner on my first day, I think it was, and looking at my timetable and just thinking, I am never, ever going to understand what this actually means and where I'm going to have to be. For me, I went to primary school in Laxey and then went up to Ramsey Grammar School. So I guess I had gone from quite a small village school to a big one. But last night, I thought, who would remember better this move for me than my mum? So I asked her about my move up to high school.
I remember there being a lot at primary school about, it's a big step to go to secondary school. Because you were at Laxey, you had the opportunity to go to either of the Douglas schools or Ramsey. And your dad and I had decided you were going to go to Ramsey. But obviously, it had to be your decision. So you went round all 3 schools. In fact, I seem to remember you actually went round Ballacomine twice, just to make sure that it wasn't the school for you. And a lot of your friends from Laxey were going to Ramsey, and a lot of your friends from the year ahead of you, the year above you, were already at Ramsey, so it really wasn't much of a choice, but it had to be your choice.
That's the first time you've ever told me that. I genuinely thought I had a choice.
You did have a choice.
I didn't have a choice.
Well, if you'd absolutely said, I'm going to go to Park Road, we would probably have gone along with it, just for an easy life.
Yep, they lied to me. They lied to me until last night. I discovered the truth. Thanks, Mum.
I hope there are no more lies to be uncovered. Well, we are talking today about the transition from primary to secondary school. So let's now meet our guests who are live in the studio. Jan Gimbert is the Department of Education's Improvement Advisor. Jan, do you remember your first day of big school?
I do, and I had a bit of a different experience probably to everybody else because I went to Ramsey Grammar for 1 year, and then for my second year QE2 opened, so I had 2 transitions, and I did find actually going back to QE2 and being with all my friends who I'd been with at primary school a much more positive experience than actually us all going in separate directions for that first year of high school at that particular time.
And how seriously was the notion of transition taken when you made that move?
I can't remember an awful lot about it because it's such a long time ago now, but I think I just turned up on the morning of my first day at Ramsey Grammar in my uniform and got on the bus and did what I was expected to do and got on with it for a year. But no one really explained what the differences and what the similarities between primary and secondary would be like, you know, the expectations in terms of homework and organising myself. So yeah, it was a bit of a different experience then, a very long time ago compared to now.
Jo Richardson is also with us this afternoon. She's been the head teacher of Oncombe Primary School since 2008. Do you remember your move, Jo?
I do. I was at Fairfield School at the time and I made the transition up to Ballacomene. I was the only one in A3 from my primary school, so I was all on my own. But the really good thing that came out of it was I met one of my really good friends on day one, and we still do lunch every Saturday now, so that's really, really good. But it was daunting. It was, as Jan said, it was all about, all of a sudden it was homework. My mother brought me a briefcase because she thought that was what you were supposed to have. So yeah, spot the person with the briefcase on the first day. Yeah, that was me, and in my sparkly uniform and everything else, with the Clark shoes on my feet and doing all of that. It was just what you did, and yeah, a bit scary.
Did you get upset when you didn't come home with a pay packet?
Absolutely. Nobody explained that bit to me.
From your point of view then, as a head teacher of a primary school, how emotional do you get when you have to say goodbye to your year sixes?
Oh, it's horrid. It doesn't get any easier either. I keep saying to my year sixes at the moment, they are just stunning. They really are. They are fantastic. And they've been with me. One of them pointed out to me the other day that they are my very first group that I've seen all the way through. And so they're mine, they're my babies. But every single year it's incredibly difficult. It really is. And you do your leavers assemblies, and you go to the leavers party, and you're making all the awards and everything else. And it's really difficult to go, they're not mine anymore. But the good thing is, though, that I still pop into St Ninians an awful lot. So I get to see them, and they're used to coming round the corner and finding me around the corner, so it works.
We just had a text in from William who says, Miss Richardson sounds very posh on the radio. She's the lovely head of our school. Hip, hip, hooray.
Shouldn't he be in school? Is that one of the pupils?
Brownie points there, I think. Well, our final guest this afternoon is Keith Winstanley, who's head teacher of Castle Rushen High School. Before that, he was deputy head at Ballacomene, and before that, QE2. Do you remember your first day, Keith?
I do, yes. Similar sorts of experiences. I don't think the word transition or the idea of moving from primary to secondary was particularly big in Peel in the early 1980s. I remember the only piece of advice I was given at the end of my stay in year 6, and it wasn't even called year 6 in those days, was it? Was to be good, which perhaps was specific advice aimed particularly at the way I had been operating at Peel Cloth Workers. And then I remember the first day, I can still, thinking back now, with two good friends, and we definitely had to walk up together, and we took a bit of a circuitous route to QE2 because we were very worried about the older students on the way up there in our, as Jo says, in bright shiny new shoes and maybe inappropriate choice of luggage.
Thanks as always to our amazing guests, and as ever, it's never too late for you to get involved. Head over to Facebook, find the Women Today Facebook page, and you can comment there, or you can follow us at MR Women Today on Twitter, and you can listen again to the full programmes on manxradio.com, or join us every weekday live from just after 2:00.
Women Today, brought to you by citywing.com for your next flight away.